The United Kingdom Westminster Magistrates Court in London Wednesday ruled not to grant bail to Australian journalist Julian Assange. Democrats are closer to taking control of the Senate after winning one of the two Georgia seats. The Brazilian government to suspend the purchase of syringes amidst the COVID-19 pandemic rollout in the South American nation. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The United Kingdom Westminster Magistrates Court in London on Wednesday ruled not to grant a bail to Australian journalist Julian Assange because of flight risk. Thousands of people accompanied the hearing from the courthouse entrance with banners and shots of "Free Julian Assange Now." WikiLeaks founder was expected to be released on bail during the time it takes for Washington to appeal the UK's decision not to extradite Assange to the US. In the first minutes of the hearing, US Attorney Claire Dobbin urged Judge Vanessa Baratzer not to allow the journalist's release because he cannot be trusted. Assange is determined to avoid extradition, she said. Dobbin suggested that Assange might flee to Mexico because President Andrés Manuel López Obrador offered him political asylum. On Monday, Baratzer denied that Assange will be extradited to the U.S. because of the activist's delicate health situation and the high risk of suicide. The Australian suffers from clinical depression, which could be exacerbated if he faces the U.S. high-security prison's brutal conditions. The U.S. wants Assange to be extradited, so he faces charges of espionage and computer hacking. In that country, he could receive up to 175 years in prison. From 2010 to 2011, WikiLeaks revealed Washington's intentions to intervene in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Assange has been held in UK maximum security prison since President Lenin Moreno's government expelled him from the embassy of Ecuador in London in April 2019. And after Judge Vanessa Baratzer denied Julian Assange's legal team bail petition, his partner and mother of his two sons, Stella Morris, expressed her profound disappointment and urged U.S. Justice Department to drop the charges against Assange.
This is a huge disappointment. Julian should not be in Belmarsh prison in the first place. I urge the Department of Justice to drop the charges and the President of the United States to pardon Julian.
Also, WikiLeaks editor-in-chief Christine Hrafson stated that Assange's relatives, supporters and legal team still have hope that justice will prevail.
We still want the President of the United States, both the one soon leaving office and the one coming in, to consider pardon. We want this to end, but we are confident that justice will prevail.
The rejection of Assange's bail petition on Wednesday continues a legal saga of over a decade of prosecution against WikiLeaks founder and also the criminalization of journalistic activities. Our correspondent Pablo Navarrete provides us with more details from London. We are confronting technical issues in this case, in this moment, but we will continue with our news brief.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά. Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on teleSUR.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real life. Fridays, only on teleSUR.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on teleSUR.
teleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and impact the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. And now we receive Eric Volt, who is a political analyst and published author, to dialogue about Julian Assange's case and the latest events regarding his legal process. Welcome, Eric, and thank you for your time and presence here with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, Eric, so after the president's events on Monday, when Judge Baratzer ruled that Assange will not be extradited to the U.S., there was many hopes and expectations on today's hearing. Under your considerations, what could have been the circumstances and elements that led to this contradictory decision from the same judge?
I think today's ruling was extremely disappointing, the fact that he was not given bail. On the other hand, I do think that the decision not to extradite Julian Assange is a major victory for the global movement that has worked to prevent extradition, that has worked in favor of human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the freedom to receive accurate information. Obviously, it's not a complete victory, far from it, and it's not a victory for the rule of law and the respect for human rights in the UK particularly and the West in general, because the ruling was based on strictly humanitarian grounds and the judge did not accept any of the arguments that were put forward to show that the extradition would be an attack, a blatant attack on freedom of speech and freedom of information. So Western democracies and the UK, the rule of law in the UK are not winners in this case, but the global movement of normal activists, grassroots activists, experts, brave independent journalists, current and former heads of state, human rights activists, UN experts, etc., that have stood up against extradition. There's no doubt that they have won a major victory, because probably what's happened is that for the UK authorities, it would just be too embarrassing to send Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, to the US. And they found that basing this decision on humanitarian grounds would be less embarrassing for the US government and create less friction between the US and the UK government. So they decided to base the decision on those grounds.
So do you believe that this decision is half pleasant, to please maybe the US with the second decision and to please the UK with the first decision?
Yeah, I would. That's not a far-fetched hypothesis.
So this new decision over the Assange's case marks over a decade of this case, and also maybe the criminalization of journalistic activities. How the resolution of the case, this new decision and all that could bring, affects maybe journalism and also maybe the perception of what journalistic activities could be, on your perception, of course.
Yeah, of course. If you'd permit me to take a step back and on general terms, view this from above, sort of. I mean, WikiLeaks has made two major sets of revelations. The obvious one has been that it's revealed the true nature of how the US seeks to maintain world hegemony through hard and soft power, including war crimes, overthrowing democratically elected governments, through military coups and other forms of meddling against other countries, in many cases in clear breach of international and national law. The second revelation is that WikiLeaks has made are the limits to Western democracy, human rights, freedom of the press, and freedom of information. Not so much through the concrete leaks, the leaked documents, but through the ferocious persecution to which WikiLeaks has been subject. And really the absence of any loyalty to the principles of human rights and freedom of speech from European states who have this whole time failed to protect Julian Assange from persecution, in spite of very clear criticism and very clear demands from UN experts such as the Special Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer, and the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. So even if Julian Assange is set free tomorrow, which he should be, or today, there is still the very chilling example of how his life has been destroyed during 10 years for the mere fact that he has published true information of public interest. And so really what we're seeing is that in Europe, there is, as long as you publish things that the governments tolerate, there is freedom of expression, there's freedom of speech. But as soon as you publish something that is deemed to be too dangerous for the powers that be, particularly in the US, then you run the risk of losing your liberty and having your life basically destroyed, as has happened with Julian Assange, which is really, really a tragic example for Europe. And it's also very revealing that the states that have offered asylum to Julian Assange during this period have been mostly Latin American countries, whereas European countries have stayed silent or even actively participated in the persecution of WikiLeaks and of Julian Assange, and in general against whistleblowers. I mean, there used to be a time when political refugees from Chile, from Argentina, fleeing from Latin American military dictatorships would go to Europe and find a safe haven from persecution there. And now it's the other way around. You have Western-based whistleblowers and publishers like Julian Assange, and they get asylum. They have to apply for asylum, or they have offered asylum from Latin American states. So it's the world upside down, and it's of course very disappointing for those of us who somehow believe in Western democracy.
I think, Eric, that maybe the so-called democracy and the so-called freedom of speech only serves the power. In this case, I think Assange case demonstrates that.
I wouldn't go as far as that, but definitely the Assange case shows that there are very severe limits to freedom of speech and freedom of information in Western democracies. And also, what is extremely worrisome in this case is the precedence that has been created, because when the US gives itself the power to extradite and punish people who have no real connection to the US, Julian Assange is an Australian citizen. He was based in Iceland for some time and mostly in European countries, and he has hardly set foot in the US. And so he is extradited. The US is basically using their legislation extraterritorially to limit freedom of expression, to limit the freedom of press in any other countries, because what Julian Assange is accused of publishing, his crimes, are absolutely no different from the publication of the very same cables by many Western Western mainstream media outlets who have published those very same outlets. So there's really, if this precedent is created, then it means that no journalist is safe from persecution anywhere as soon as any foreign government with the power to do so demands to have a journalist extradited and punished for the so-called crime of revealing the truth about abuse of power from states and governments.
Indeed, Eric. So we thank you for your opinions, your criteria, and all you share with us here From the South. And now we have more news coming up after this short break, so stay with us.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomen. Monday, only on teleSUR. Who's moving the chess man? What interests and motivate the actors behind each event? What's at stake? Critical Move investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on teleSUR.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on teleSUR.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real life. Fridays. Only on teleSUR.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. Democrats inch closer to taking control of the Senate on Wednesday, winning one of the two Georgia seats up for grabs in a pair of runoff elections, while the second contest remained too close to call. The Reverend Raphael Warnock, a Democrat and the pastor at the Baptist Church in Atlanta, defeated Senator Kelly Loeffler, a Republican, to become the first black senator in Georgia history and the first black Democrat to be elected to the Senate in the South. In the other contest, David Perdue, the Republican whose Senate term ended on Sunday, and his Democratic challenger, Jon Ossoff, were neck and neck with thousands of votes still to be counted, many of them from Democratic-leaning areas. If Democrats win both races, the party will hold 50 seats in the Senate and de facto control of the chamber, with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris serving as the tie-breaking vote and Senator Mitch McConnell relegated to becoming minority leader. Reverend Raphael Warnock wins the first of two Georgia runoffs, bringing the Democratic Party one giant step closer to seizing control of the U.S. Senate.
Georgia, I am honored by the faith that you have shown in me, and I promise you this tonight. I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. No matter who you cast your vote for in this election, in this. And so Georgia.
And several people were arrested in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday in connection to protests ahead of Congress' certification of the Electoral College votes on Wednesday. Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police said 6 arrests were made, including some involving multiple charges. Those charges including a handful that were weapons-related, including carrying firearms without license. Tuesday rallies in support of President Donald Trump, who refuses to accept his November electoral loss to President-elect Joe Biden, featured an array of conservative speakers and drew in throngs of Trump supporters who traveled to the nation's capital ahead of Wednesday's proceedings. Though the formal events ended earlier Tuesday, protesters remain out in the street well into the night. The main draw will take place Wednesday morning ahead of the congressional gathering, where the president himself will address a protest outside the White House dubbed the March for Trump, Save America. Thousands are expected to attend that event, which was organized by the pro-Trump group Women for America First. The police officers involved in the shooting of Jacob Blake, which led to the days of social unrest last summer in Wisconsin, will not face any criminal charges, local authorities said on Tuesday. Blake, who is black, was struck by 7 bullets at close range on August 23rd as he walked away from Kenosha police officer Rustin Chesky, who had answered a domestic disturbance call. Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely told reporters that Chesky and other officers will have had a strong case for self-defense. The shooting paralyzed Blake below the waist, according to his families. Also, Blake's family attorney, Benjamin Crump, said Gravely wrongfully denied the community its chance to try the fact. We are immensely disappointed in Kenosha District Attorney Michael Gravely's decision not to charge the officers involved in this horrific shooting, Crump said in a statement. The Brazilian government issued an order seeking to suspend the purchase of syringes destined to supply health care centers. President Jair Bolsonaro suspended the purchase of the health material because of his alleged disagreement in the prices set by the producing factories. Medical experts said that the decree worsens the supply shortage of injections in healthcare centers in the midst of the pandemic and compromises the vaccination campaign in the country. In this sense, specialists claim that health centers throughout the country have a disproportionate supplies of syringe of only 2.5%. And the rejection of Assange's bail petition on Wednesday continues a legal saga of over a decade of prosecution against WikiLeaks founder and also the criminalization of journalistic activities. Our correspondent Pablo Navarrete provides us with more details from London.
Julian Assange, the publisher and journalist, was denied bail today, Wednesday, at the Westminster Magistrates Court. Now, it was expected, or it was hoped by his followers and his legal team, that he would be given bail, whilst we await if the US government will appeal Monday's decision by a UK judge not to extradite Assange to the US, where he faces 18 charges, 17 of espionage and 1 of computer interference following documents released by WikiLeaks showing US war crimes and other information. Now, the judge today rejected the the case that the Belmarsh prison, where Julian Assange has been since April 2009, is a health risk essentially to Julian Assange's life. She said that his mental health was being managed at the prison, and so rejected those as grounds for giving him bail. This is disappointing to his legal team, to his supporters, many of whom had gathered alongside around 60, 70 media organisations and journalists. Now, a number of his supporters were arrested outside the magistrates as the police are enforcing essentially no protest is allowed. Only journalists are allowed to be in the vicinity of the magistrates, and so there were various arrests made. Quite aggressive policing was criticised by many there. So Julian Assange has been denied bail, and now we await to see if the US will be appealing Monday's decision not to extradite him to the US.
A white Bengal tiger has been born at a zoo in Nicaragua. The female cub, named Nieves Snow, is being raised by the zoo director's wife after the cub's mother rejected Nieves. The zoo director, Eduardo Sacasa, said Nieves, who is just over a week old, was the first white Bengal tiger to be born in the Central American nation. Mr. Sacasa said that the mother, a yellow and black Bengal tiger who was rescued from a circus 5 years ago, could not produce milk to feed Nieves. This kind of tigers are now exclusively found in captive breeding programs, where they are sometimes interbred to maintain the distinctive fur color. However, a number of white tigers found in zoos have health issues, probably as a result of the selective inbreeding, such as eyesight problems and deformities. Nieves will not be the only white tiger at the zoo near the capital, Managua. In May 2019, Mr. Sacasa welcomed the arrival of Osma and Halime, two white tigers cubs donated by a zoo in Mexico. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.